everything you need to know about products and services that can improve your life. This is Experts on Call on CL 650.
Come on over, baby. Whole lot of shaking going on.
We are back. This is Strata.Life, part of Experts on Call here at CIL 650. I'm George Gordon, and we're joined in studio with Dan Ahern from Key Pacific Property Management and Gordon Lee of CMW Insurance. And our theme today is the emergency and how you can be ready for the unexpected. Now, I don't want to miss the opportunity for people to know how you can be reached or they can get in contact with you. You know what's going to happen. They're going to hear something that applies to them. They'll want more information. We can tell you first off that if you have questions, you can send your feedback and your ideas to questions@strata.life. But now, Dan, how would we go about getting a hold of you?
Me personally, send a question to info@keypacific.com.
All right. And Gordon?
They could email me directly. My personal email is gli@cmwinsurance.com.
Sounds good. All right. Let's consider that there are many strata councils out there that want to be ready for adversity. Now, can you review best practices and the strata's obligations regarding emergency preparedness?
Oh,
Dan?
well, you know, the last shake really woke people up, and much like the windstorm we had, what was that? It was back in August, and I think that lit up our phone lines more than this earthquake. But people really started to think about that, and you know, it gives us cause to sort of revisit that too. There's so much. It's a program on its own, the emergency preparedness, and I really encourage that either the councils take it on, or they hire an expert to take it on, or set up a volunteer committee, or even task the property managers to do it. But you know, it's some of the things that you want to look at is assessing the potential risks that are there, like loose bookcases that are just propped up in the lobby. You know, do they need to be secured? What's going to happen when the power goes out? Does the generator kick on? What does it operate? You're going to have garage doors that are working, or they need to be manual opened. What happens to the elevators? The general electronic controls. What's going to happen there with fobs? What's going to happen to your doors? Are they default locked? They default unlocked? Is the intercom going to work? How do you get in and out of the building? So these are all sort of some of the concerns. Electric light functions, you know, the power goes out and we always get phone calls that the emergency lights aren't working. Well, most of them are battery packs. They're not intended to stay on for hours at a time, just long enough to get out of your unit. So excuse me. Council needs to be prepared. You have proper phone lists in place, emergency contacts, your insurance company, property manager company, restoration firm. You know, all those things need to be looked at. You need to organize volunteers, right? Who's going to maintain
volunteering, right?
The front doors, the parkade area. So, I mean, there's so much to consider. That really it's a program or job on its own, and we can help out our clients with that, or they take it on themselves.
Well, I would think that would be very important for, especially, let's say a new building. You've got novice people perhaps who are wondering if they should join council. Your property manager is, you know, getting to meet these new people. Is it your role as a property manager to set these people up and say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about setting up a volunteer committee? And pointing out that, you know, every cost that you can reduce, if you don't have to call in a security guy to watch the garage door because it's open and it's underground and there are 500 cars down there waiting to be broken into, if we can find somebody to take a 2-hour shift, we're going to save money.
Yep.
So is that part of sort of your role as the advisor here?
Exactly. As little or as much as you like. I mean, it's a relationship that you develop with the councils, and it takes a while to figure out exactly how everyone wants to fit together. Some councils are super proactive and they really run with everything, and others want to sit back a little bit more and be true directors of a board and then task the management company with things.
Right. All things to be considered. Let's and I think every building goes through that point where things are getting a little dowdy, a little drab. Let's do some sprucing up here. So what about a strata that has just done a beautiful renovation in the lobby, and say upgraded the fire panel. How is the insurance affected by that? Gordon?
On the insurance policy, because of the Strata Act in British Columbia, most of these stratas will have appraisals, and that's something that the appraisal company should include. Now, probably one of the main jobs, though, the appraisal company wouldn't know automatically that people are doing these upgrades. So, I think the property managers usually would notify them if there's any significant upgrades. But something that CMW does, especially on our policy, is that we also allow for this, and we set an allowance of $1 million. In the event that you are going to be doing upgrade, we're going to provide some coverage for you while that upgrade's being done till when it's completed. And, we'll take the assumption that when it's completed, any significant upgrade like that, you'll notify us either through your property manager or just directly, and we'll make sure that is covered.
When a homeowner or a tenant is required to pay the deductible in an insurance claim, when does this happen? How do you differentiate? Because I'm sure you get a lot of calls, about 1,000 calls right away.
So if I got the call, usually I say, you know what, you could reach Dan O'Hearn at keyspecific.com because we don't really assess from the broker or the insurance company. We don't assess who pays the deductible. The standard practice from the insurance company's point of view or the broker is that deductible is paid by the insured. So basically, it's going to be billed to the Strata Corporation, and the Strata Corporation would have to pay that deductible. From there going forward, who internally gets assessed is responsible for it. It's up to the Strata Council / property manager.
Yeah.
Based on the Strata Act.
And rule of thumb, it's always going to fall onto the owner of the strata lot, right? So I mean, even if your tenant has caused this problem, it's going to be the homeowner's responsibility, because the Strata Corporation has that, through provisions of the Act, that the homeowner's responsible either for the deductible or for the damage, and it's either contained within the bylaws that they can do that, or there may be even litigation, right? So make sure you have the proper policy in place, and ideally compel your tenants to also have a policy.
Compel. So a notice goes out. You own a unit here. You should know that you should have this kind of coverage. Is that up to the building manager, or?
No, it will be up to the individual strata lot owner to make sure that they have their insurance, or to make sure that their tenant has it. But again, under residential leases, you can't require them to do it, but you certainly paint the picture of the scenario. I mean, we forget, if you're out of your unit because of fire or smoke, you have out-of-pocket living expenses immediately. You probably want to buy some clothes because all your clothes are damaged, and right away you're spending thousands of dollars.
Yeah, and from our experience, whether it's condominiums or apartments, the percentage, Dan, is actually lower than 30%.
Is it?
I would say maybe only 10 or 20% of people have insurance. Yeah. Because when we have these large losses that, we see, the first thing is the tenants are saying, do I have coverage through the strata's insurance or the owner's insurance? And, and I think the only where they do find some coverage, usually through the municipality, there is a fund that provides some coverage for, temporary living for 2-3 days, but that is just not enough. That is not enough.
I would say that you hit upon a very important thing there, is knowing that you should have coverage. Some people intentionally say, well, I don't really, what's this going to cost to replace, really? Do people really understand, the replacement cost of everything that's in there? I mean, you can't sell it in a furniture sale for anything, but if you have to replace it, it's
and I think for all the years being in the business, people don't. The thing, George, is that what I see is that we have claims, and when it comes to making claims, people sure can add up the amounts, say, these are the things that need to replace. But I think people underestimate those values, because when I did a lot more personal lines, selling directly to the unit owners, I would say to them, you got to remember, in the event of a loss, you can't wait for that Boxing Day sale. You can't wait. So I said, unless, whatever you make in your income, unless you're telling me you're putting it all in saving, you're spending it somewhere. And we spend to buy things. This is North America. We're consumers that love to shop. And so people, I say, think about how much money you shop for items, and that goes in your home. So, if you tell me you can't afford the insurance today, what you're also telling me is you can't afford not to have the insurance, because the insurance at $400 or $500 a year, if you can't afford that on a monthly basis of $40, it tells me if there's a loss,
yeah,
you're in
How
trouble.
are you going to come up with $4,000 or $40,000?
Well, and yeah, and it's worse than, it's not just your own personal stuff, right? It's again the living out of pocket, but homeowners have to understand that they may have to pay the corporation's deductible.
Yes.
And that could be anywhere from $100 to $100,000. And they don't even have to be negligent to have to pay that. I mean, if your washing machine you're using properly, but suddenly the hose ruptures, you weren't negligent, but you're still responsible. And that could be very costly.
Yes.
Right?
And then on top of that, we've had where, unit owner, not at their fault, the hose breaks,
Yeah.
Causes damage to, 10, 20 other units.
Yeah.
And those contents
Yes.
in those units, say those people have insurance, that insurance company is going to go back and look for that money in subrogation back to the original source unit. So there's a liability on top of that, that these policies provide coverage for it. And if you don't, you might be winding in small claims court yourself, defending yourself, and hope and pray that the judge is not going to say you're responsible. So really, there's huge value in having these insurance policies, whether it's $200 or $500, $600. That is such a small amount of money to pay for the protection that each individual needs.
You're listening to StrataLife here on CIL 650. It is part of our Experts on Call series. I'm George Gordon, and we have with us today Dana Hearn from Key Pacific Property Management and Gordon Lee of CMW Insurance. Now, we've talked about responsibilities, insurance, what you should have and coverage and so on, and we talked in generalities, but let's talk about if we'd had the earthquake and if perhaps there was something specific that you can do for that. We'll do that in a moment. And if you'd like more information, you can call either of these gentlemen. We will give you their phone numbers or their contact points online in a moment. And if you have feedback or you have ideas, send them to questions@strata.life. Here at CIL 650, I'm George Gordon.
This is Experts on Call on CIL 650.